Hello everyone, I'm Cole from the Kingdom, and a few days ago I sat down with Ghil Dirthalen to talk about what Solas' plan actually is. I'm leaving a link to her channel in the description, and I highly recommend you go check her out. She has some fantastic videos over on her channel. So, with that said, let's get to it.
So basically what we're talking about here is that we wanted to go over Solas's plans and kind of like what we think it could be, what we think it is, blah, 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 blah. So we have a couple of things that we've discussed of what we're going to go over, and the first subject is going to be the Titans. Kind of my major just thought on this is, will they even stir? Like they did reawaken, at least one of them did. Probably the one closest to the breach kind of stirred up and woke up when the breach happened. So what's going to happen when the whole veil goes down?
Well, I was thinking about that too, and I think the earthquakes that happened in the descent were more a result of confusion than anything else.
Yeah.
So I think if the breach went down, or not the breach, if the breach awoke one, I can only imagine what would happen if the whole veil comes down. Would all of them awake? It's hard to say. I think if they did, there would probably be similar results as to what happened in the descent.
Mm-hmm.
But that also raises the question, what would happen to the dwarves and their, connection to the Titans?
Mm-hmm. My understanding of the descent was that the reason there was the earthquakes is because that whatever Titan that was had reawoken, and it was no longer connected to its children, so to speak. So it got super confused and worried and therefore shaking. And when we took Volta down there, it connected with her, and that's why it calmed down. It was able to understand what was going on. So unless a dwarf went down to all of the Titans and kind of calm it and reassure it and tell it what's going on to have some sort of connection to the world, what would happen? What would happen to the Titan that we did see if we didn't bring Volta down? What would have happened? Would it have been just destruction, or would, even if the veil went down, would the dwarves automatically connect to the stone then?
That is a good question. I hadn't thought about what just would happen to the dwarves. I mean, we know that they're not completely immune to magic, and they can dream under the right circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
The way Volta was able to connect with the Titan was being hit with raw lyrium, but, plenty of dwarves have connected with raw lyrium, and they didn't connect to a Titan. Is it because the Titans are still asleep?
Oh, maybe.
Yeah, it certainly seems like that.
But that's the point of talking about it, though, is like we get a whole bunch of questions lined up, and that way we can check them off as the series progresses.
Right.
So, go on.
Well, it's worth mentioning that, in Trespasser, in one of the secret rooms in the Deep Roads, you can unlock a codex, which seems like it's Solas talking, and it's where it describes the Evanuris fighting the Titans. Mm-hmm. And at the end, it's presumably Solas saying, I'm paraphrasing, but let this place be forgotten. Let no one wake its anger.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems like the Titans are dangerous just on their own. If even Solas is trying to warn people, let them stay asleep.
Mm-hmm. I've always wondered if perhaps the Blight was even like a reaction from the Titans, like a way to fight back. If that could be a possibility. And that's why there's blighted lyrium, Jesus Christ. Blighted lyrium. Because that's where it originated to begin with.
That's a good question, but it's hard to say what came first, the Blight or red lyrium.
Mm-hmm.
If it was a reaction from the Titans, I feel like it should be, further. It should have been discovered well before the Deep Roads expedition.
That's true. And you would also think then the dwarves would somehow be immune to it, because otherwise, why would you destroy your little children over whatever was going on? But,
right.
Oh, well. So another thing I was thinking on Titans is, would a Dwarven society actually benefit from the veil coming down if it meant being connected to a Titan again? So we see Volta, she now has the ability to actually shape stone and has some sort of magic. So is that just is what her abilities are. Is that just one special dwarf picked by the Titan, or would all dwarves actually have this ability now?
If Volta... Yeah, I don't know where I was going with that sentence.
That's okay.
I think... I'm not sure, because in the Codex entry, I forget if it was in the Temple of Mythal or in Trespasser, it talks about the Titans... Or it talks about the Titans having basically mindless servants, which one would assume to be the dwarves.
Yeah.
So if all dwarves were connected to the Titans, the question is a Titan the collective mind of all dwarves, or are dwarves controlled by the single mind of the Titan?
It seems at least that when Volta... Something happened to Volta. I don't know if you've read the Descent Codex entries, but something happened to Volta.
Yeah,
She's a little bit kooky now. But whatever happened to her, though, she does have some of her mind left. Like, she still talks about having a connection to Ren and, like, missing him and stuff like that.
Right.
So even though that is a part of the Titan, she is still herself. Is it possible that the Elven Codex entry is from the Elves' view looking in? You know?
Well, that's certainly what it appears. Not sure. I don't know. It's hard to say because we know so little about the Titans.
Well, maybe hopefully... What are the chances that they introduce the Titans and then they never talk about them again?
It wouldn't be the first time.
That's true. I'm looking at you, the architect. Where are you? You seem so important and then nothing.
Yep.
Oh, well. Well, did you have anything else to say on the Titans?
Well, I do have something to say that... Well, it's about the Titans, but it's also about the old gods. And that's, the old gods are imprisoned underground. That much we know.
Yes.
Are they... And we also know that they're asleep, just like the Titans are considered to be asleep. So, do the old gods have any direct connection to the Titans? Or, could the Titans simply be what is holding the old gods prisoner?
I certainly remember it, and I didn't pull it up yet because note to the fans, I was extremely late for this meeting because I'm an idiot, so I'm extremely not prepared for this right now. I had a fan submit a really cool theory that I will be making a video on later, but just to kind of spoil it. So it's by Twitter user FlyingDude7, and he had the idea, or I think it's he had the idea that... So you know how when you drink from the well, or I guess Morrigan drinks the well from sorrow, she's able to turn into a dragon?
Right.
And she later says that she has these powers passed down from high priest to high priest. So he was wondering if maybe the old gods are actually the high priests of the Evanurus, and that's why they're dragons.
That is an interesting theory.
I thought that was so cool.
There is one codex entry that comes to mind. It's translated Elven writing that you get if the Inquisitor drinks from the Well of Sorrows and you go to the right place in Temple of Mythal and pick it up. But it says, the sinner belongs to Dirthalen. He flew in the shape reserved for the divine.
Yeah.
So it seems to me dragons were... No one but the Evanurus was allowed to, be a dragon. But since you bring it up in the Temple of Mythal, yeah, that's kind of weird.
I don't know. Maybe it was like it was a form reserved for gods, but maybe since it's the high priest, they're very important to the gods, so it was something like that. I don't know. I just thought that was a really cool theory, so shout out to you, dude. And you'll hear more from it later. This is probably a video in October, but peddling my own wares on our joint podcast thing.
Yeah.
Okay, anyway. So let's focus more on the old gods. So I was thinking if Solas takes down the veil right now, there's still 2 old gods left. So if the veil comes down, does that reawaken them? Does that break them free? Is that a positive thing because they're untainted? Or would they also just start fucking shit up anyway because they're angry about something? Is the tainted old gods, are they waging war on the earth because they're tainted, or were they just going to do that anyway?
That is a good question. I was actually thinking about that earlier. But the archdemons command the Darkspawn. The blights don't happen until the old gods are awoken and tainted. But why are archdemons needed? If it seems like the blight, by its very nature, is meant to destroy things.
Mm-hmm.
Why did the Darkspawn follow the call of the old gods, who aren't tainted until the Darkspawn actually find them?
Mm-hmm.
So that's a question.
That is, have you played the Darkspawn DLC?
I have not. That's, I think, one of the only two I haven't played.
It's not like play it for like 5 minutes. You're like, all right, I get the point. But like the Archdemon can like beam directions into your mind. It's like, all right, now you need to do X, Y, or Z. So I'm assuming it's kind of like, the Archdemon controls everything. But the Archdemon has a very intelligent presence. So I don't think it's just a monster. So this kind of just goes into the question of like, do they want to be tainted, to be freed? Or is the taint making them crazy and wanting to destroy the world? I'm almost on the camp that they do want to destroy the world, and they're calling out to the Darkspawn to make them free. Yeah, they get tainted. Yeah, they die, but, they get to destroy the havoc they want. Do they? But Solas is so against just going down into the deep and killing all the archdemons, and I've always wondered why. Like, you kind of said, like, is the old gods somehow connected to the Titans? Are they, like, holding them back or something? If all the old gods go away, Solas only kind of almost made it sound like something really bad would happen. So what is that bad thing? I don't think it's taking down the veil, otherwise Solas would be all for that. So what's bad?
Well, I think in the conversation where he says, where he explains killing the old gods is a bad idea, he explicitly says the blight is not something one smugly outsmarts.
Mm.
And that's an important line to me because I feel like he's speaking from experience. I feel like he's tried to outsmart it.
Mm-hmm.
And all that ended up happening was it comes back.
Yeah.
But the question is, I remember he was in a banter with Blackwall, and he's trying to understand the logic of the Grey Wardens. He says, so the Grey Wardens believe without archdemons there can be no blights. And it makes me think, what happens to the Darkspawn when there's no old gods left to call them?
That's the age-old question, is it not?
Yeah.
So this also reminds me, Yavanna, I always forget the name of that series, like the
Silent Grove.
Yeah, something like that. It's one of those. There's like 10 of them. Anyway, but in the first run of the comics, Yavanna mentions that the dragons are the blood of the world. Like, does she mean dragons or like the old god dragons? If the old god dragons disappear, what would happen? I mean, that's what we're talking about this entire time, yeah. But if just blood of the world, I don't know. Just if lyrium's is blood of titans and dragons are blood of the world.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting comment, and I honestly have no idea what she means by that.
I don't think anyone does.
Maybe they just threw that in because it sounded cool.
I would not be surprised. I bet like half of this stuff they're never going to explain. It's going to be like the ending of Lost, where you're like, wow, that's really great, but none of like, what were the polar bears doing? What was that spell? What's up with this? Also, why did the old gods want the Magister to break into the Black City? Was it just to bring back the blight? Or were they already blighted?
I don't think they were already blighted. Why would they want them to break into the Black City? There's, of course, the theory that the old gods are the Evanuris, which I personally don't believe. But, the Magisters succeeded, we think. They succeeded. They went into the Black City. They became tainted. They left.
Well, they didn't. Well, I was about to say they didn't gain power of a god, but I guess they're immortal, so I guess.
Yeah. And they do have blight magic now, which is not, easy to obtain. And we see that Corypheus is able to use blight magic to A, mimic the calling, and B, put part of his soul into another dragon.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes me think, what if the old gods are actually just a piece of the soul of something else?
Maybe. I know that's a common theory of like the old gods are pieces of the Evanuris. I know there actually seems to be a banter about that with Cassandra and Solas, where Cassandra says, "Is there anything connecting the old gods to your people or whatever?" And he's like, not really." But he doesn't say yes. He doesn't really say no. He just says there's no history connecting the two, which so I almost say it's like a non-committal answer, but
I should also say, and a lot of this is going to be covered in a video I'm making right now, but we also see in Jaws of Hakon, demons can possess dragons.
Yeah.
And Hakon himself even believed himself to be a god because the Avar believed he was, so he believed himself to be one. And that's what the Chantry believes. The Chantry believes that the old gods were really just demons. There might be something to that. I mean, that might be completely it.
Maybe. So like the old gods were kind of maybe they're even so in this scenario, the old gods are just a bunch of demons that possess dragons. So that would make them a lot like the forbidden ones. Except they didn't possess dragons. But like, what if they were even the same group, and then for some reason the forbidden ones are like, nah, good, we're good, we're gonna be over here, and the other ones just went and possessed dragons, and lo and behold, here we are. Well, we've gone over the old gods, so let's go down to the Great Wardens.
Oh, actually, yes? I have one more thing to say. Erthemiel's soul. Yeah. I feel like that's gonna matter. If Solas doesn't want the old gods, killed, and he obviously took Mythal's power, what we don't know is if that included Erthemiel's soul.
I'd be really interesting to see what that does, because like what was the statistic that like more players actually chose to sacrifice the warden than to create the old god? I don't know. Either way, there's going to be like it's what do they call them? A quantum choice where it could be there, it could be not. So whatever it does affect isn't going to be a huge difference, one would think. So at least in gameplay wise. So how are they going to make that? Because it seems like something really, really important, and it would be really, really crappy for it to just be like, oh, look, this one tiny thing happened if you had the soul of your Thermiel, which is supposed to be this big event. So, like, I want to believe it's going to be something cool, just, like, from a game mechanic point. Like, I don't know if they could make it that or not.
Yeah, that is a good point.
But I want it to be.
I want it to be, too, because, the way they built that up, and the way they teased it in Inquisition, I don't know. I feel like I'm gonna be let down if nothing happens.
Yeah, because I think that'd be a really cool callback, especially to fans. Maybe way down, maybe even the last decision in the series. It all has to do with did you get that soul or not? And everyone who savored the war or didn't save the war was like, shit. I have to go back and play 100 games now. That what I think would be really fun, because I want these decisions to matter at some point. I do like the Titan story. I don't like these decisions only really affect the game in the bubble. But unfortunately, that's just what's easier for them to make.
Right.
So, whatever.
Well, speaking of decisions, we can now move on to the Grey Wardens.
All right, let's go to the Grey Wardens. So, the Grey Wardens, I think from what I wrote, because we both prepared for this, I think my angle was more on the Civil War aspect of what would happen if the soul went down during what there are right now, which is they're all fighting each other and the Neanderthals. So would they be able to so Vale goes down, would they be able to get their shit together and try to stop it, or would they just be all in chaos and bleh?
Well, I think that's the question. If Solas doesn't want the old gods killed, and that's what the Grey Wardens plan to do, it's in his interest to keep them fighting. And so if the Wardens are already on thin ice, I could see Solas coming over and just kind of tapping at it. He just slightly nudges them to push them over the edge into civil war. If they're fighting each other, they're not fighting him.
Now I wonder if the Civil War is even brought on by Solas. Did he get a spy in there and be like, hey?
Exactly. That's what I'm thinking.
There was did you read The Last Flight?
Last flight. No, I have not gotten to that one yet.
It's like, this isn't a spoiler, so don't worry about it. But like there are, one of the main characters is an elven, like the main character is an elven warden, but like seeing through her eyes, I don't think she's a spy. But there is another elven warden that she befriends. Like, granted, like I don't think he would be a spy, but what if he was? So
No, that's actually a good theory. I like that.
maybe, like, nothing in that book made me think that anyone was a spy of Solas. So this is like super tinfoily. But if we're going to like force that book into this, what we're talking about now, yeah, like it would be plausible for someone just to come in there and be like, hey, what if we had a civil war right now? That'd be really cool.
It is worth noting, I forget where I read this, but I know I did. During the first Blight, when the Grey Wardens were first created, they began recruiting elves. And the reason that was, the elves made a condition they would join if it allowed them equality, and in exchange they would bring knowledge that they had from their fallen empire to help fight the Darkspawn. So, I mean, that might be something having to do with the Blight, or it could just be, tactics or something else.
I wonder if perhaps they're the ones who were like, hey, if you mixed the Darkspawn blood with the Archdemon blood, you'd be able to keep your sanity.
That's a good point. I like that.
Because, like, how else are you going to be like, oh, I take Darkspawn blood into myself and I die. Maybe I shouldn't do that. Oh, but if I mix it with that blood, then it'd be okay. Like, that's not a very intuitive thing to think of. So, which, another point, what happens if you only drink Archdemon blood? Then what happens? Like, then does it, like, super work? Or is it like they both don't work, but together, then you become a Grey Warden? Which, granted, there's, like, lyrium other stuff involved, but...
Yeah, there's lyrium other stuff. I think that's, like, to prevent it from outright turning you into a ghoul. But the Archdemon blood, as I understand it, it's just super concentrated blight.
So, well, I mean, like, so the Wardens have a very large collection of secret knowledge. We all know this. Like, every day we learn something new about the Wardens. So, would they have actually anything useful to stop Solas? And how much would it take for them to give that up?
I feel like their knowledge is more concerned with the blight. But we know that the blight was in Elgar'nan. We know Solas has to plan to deal with the blight. It's hard to imagine like any knowledge that would benefit the fight against Solas, except the plans to kill the old gods. Which I guess, now that I say it out loud, their knowledge of the old gods could shed some light on Solas's plan and why they're significant.
I wonder. You would think that. Well, no, they probably would keep that secret, wouldn't they? But,
yeah, they wouldn't want people to know the true nature of the old gods.
You would think, though, if they knew the true nature and it ended up being negative, they wouldn't want to kill. Well, maybe it's more of it. Bioware's really ambiguous with their stuff, so maybe whatever they know, they're like, yeah, no, killing the old gods, that's what we do.
Right. So is...
I can't think of anything else to say on Grey Wardens. What about you?
All right, that's fine. Right. No, I'm all out too.
All right.
So,
to
Tevinter. Speaking of wars going on, it's said at the end of Trespasser that the Qunari are returning their focus to Tevinter, and it's, a war is really starting to brew, which I think it said many could fear would spread to the rest of Thedas. I think it would be really cool. This is just a side note, doesn't really relate, but I think it could be really cool seeing a new Exalted March against the Qunari.
Yeah, finally the two divines settle their differences and get rid of the Qunari together. Yeah,
I think that would be really cool. But the Qunari, I don't trust them. But
I don't think you should either.
I don't trust them, but they are interested in strengthening the Veil and stopping Solas. So it might not be the worst idea to enlist their help in stopping him.
That's what I was thinking. Like, would instead of fighting the Qunari, would we be with the Qunari?
Right. I feel like that's a choice you're going to have to make because I could see Tevinter, with all their knowledge and their mages, they could theoretically help as well. It's kind of like the mage and Templar decision. You just both can do it, but you can't have both.
Which, at least for me, totally would choose Tevinter. I completely agree with you. Don't trust the Qunari. They're gonna try to manipulate this situation to their own benefit. That's just how they work. Tevinter, at least, you also know they're gonna try to manipulate you, but at least they're not the Qunari.
Yeah.
And I usually play mages, so fuck it. But I would be curious to see if they're let's in this scenario that we're painting, Solas is going to take them down the Veil, and everyone knows it. So would Tevinter be at peace with Qunari for that time being, and together we fight, or would it be a three-way war between Tevinter, Qunari, and Solas, where they're all kind of taking pot shots at one another? Because if that's true, then Solas definitely has a clear advantage, because all he has to do is kind of stay in the low, and these two are going to fight because that's what they've always done.
Exactly. I feel like just like with the Grey Wardens, it's in Solas's interest to keep them fighting. Mm-hmm. So long as they're fighting each other, he's good. He has time.
Which maybe that's just the plot of DA4, where he'd say, no, guys, really, we need to calm down and make some peace so we can get rid of that guy.
Yeah. So that's what I see happening. Solas just doing just a few pot shots, get them to fight each other.
So when I was preparing for this whole scenario, I had a crazy random idea, because I am a soul villain at heart, and I'm so sorry, everybody. But I know. So my crazy crackpot idea, that is not happening. But what if Solas had no actual intention of pulling down the Veil, but wants to make peace in the world by uniting it with a common enemy? What if?
Ooh.
What if? That's not what's happening, but what if?
No. That would be really awesome. At the same time, I would find that so thrilling, but at the same time, it would be a letdown.
Yeah, no, if that's end up what's happening, I'm going to be very disappointed myself, because one, I'd be like, okay, one, why didn't you tell me? I could have gone with you. This could have also been a lot of fun on our end. Two, that's just a really bad letdown. So,
yeah.
No, man, because that then makes him, I think that really takes a lot of the, what makes his character so unique and interesting. So it's, instead of, trying to do his people right by doing a bad thing, it's suddenly, trying to do his people right by technically doing a good thing. It doesn't work. But what if? What if? And that's my tinfoil theory for the day. Thank you. I'll be here all week. So yeah, but even if, I guess another theory I had was okay, so Veil goes down completely. Would Tevinter and Qunari just still fight? Because they don't know what else to do?
The Qunari, their plan has always been to conquer Thedas. Mm-hmm. That hasn't changed. Even Sten in Banter in Dragon Age Origins, he says, we only signed that treaty because you believed in it. Mm-hmm. And he's talking to Alistair. Alistair says, I thought the Qunari were honorable. And he says, we are. And it is the honor of the Qunari that will bring our warships back to your shores. He makes no secret about wanting to invade.
Yeah. Which is why the Sten friendship's so interesting, because he's well, we're definitely going to invade, and this is going to be a battlefield, but I hope I don't see you on it, because you're kind of cool.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks. Which side note, I know they keep saying the Warden's not going to come back. I've accepted it and made my peace, but I just want to let everyone know how disappointing it's going to be when we have to kill Sten / Arishok Man, and the Warden doesn't get to see it or hear about it or react to it.
Yeah.
Okay, now I'm just going to get on my little soapbox about the Warden being in Dragon Age, because it could totally be a thing, and I don't want to hear anyone's bullshit, but my Warden's dead, because you have a Warden commander from Orlais from Awakening. They're definitely alive. They could totally do that. For some reason, they just don't want to bring the Warden in, and I don't, is it because, when they brought Hawk back, everyone was, really angry because of blood magic, and, I get that, you're not going to be able to do everyone's character right, but I think it's a lot better to be able to say, like, well, we got, like, a good majority of the people's characters correct, rather than, like, all of them. Like, I'd rather have a slightly off character and then I headcanon it correctly than not having him appear at all.
No, I absolutely agree. It would just be... I mean, it's the Warden. How can you not bring back the Warden? Like, that was our introduction to the whole world.
Yeah.
We spent so long with that character, developing him or her, and to never see them again. That
like it.
Although I would rather not see them again than see them done like really poorly. But I know BioWare is capable of doing it well.
Yeah, like, I didn't think, like... I know some people didn't like the Hawk appearance, but I thought it was fine. Like, I don't know, it fulfilled my need. I'm okay. But I was never really attached to my Hawk, and I'm, like, overly attached to my Inquisitor. But, like, the Warden, I would like to see again. Like, just... To make me happy is they show up... And it could just be like a 2-second, like, hi, I am the Warden. Yes, I am still in relationship with insert relationship here. And, like, look at Sten and be like, man, I thought we were friends. Fuck off. And, like, I would be happy. That's it. That's all I need.
We should consider, I should have brought this up with the Grey Wardens, but we should consider that the Warden was on a quest to find a cure for the calling.
That's true.
Now that I think about it, Did they say the Warden is never coming back, or he just wasn't coming back in Inquisition? Because
now that I'm thinking about it, I thought Mike or Mark, I'm bad with the devs' names, but they were very, very adamant. It was like, never, ever, ever, ever is this ever happening. Please stop asking us. That's how I came across to me.
God, it's been a while since I read anything about that, but I think it was just an Inquisition. It's hard to say, though, but... Still, if they were willing to say the Warden is on a search for the cure, and then they just abandon that completely,
that'd be pretty shitty.
That would be really shitty.
Yeah. Okay. Well, what if? Okay, so they're thinking about making that Dragon Age Tactics game. So I've been playing a lot of Divinity Original Sin 2. I don't know if you've played that at all. It's a lot of fun. But it kind of reminds me of Wardens, where like your main character, because if you create a custom character at least, like they'll have a couple lines they'll say here and there, but for the most part they're pretty silent. So what if the tactics game that they're making, you could star your Warden, and that way you don't have to have that voiced opinion. You can make it whatever you want. You could like if you're not playing your Warden, you could just play a Warden or whatever. It doesn't really matter. But if you play your Warden, you're able to bring them into a place so it'd make them easily insertable into the next games.
That's a very good idea that I hope they do.
BioWare, if you're listening, tell your lawyers that that's for free. As long as like you don't need to pay me for that, just do it. That's my payment. Oh, Lord.
All right. Well, we are well past Tevinter and Canary now.
That's true. We kind of got sidetracked of why we want the Warden back. Okay.
So the next topic we have lined up is what happens when the veil actually comes down, if it does.
So this is probably the longest section I've written about. I think it's easily like just a page of bull crap. But my main question here is, why does the world have to die for the veil to go down? I think it's important to ask, does it have to die now? Or was it going to die when Solas had the orb too? Like, did the breaking of the orb doom us all? Or... And that's why Solas was so sad over it breaking? Or it was going to do that anyway?
I think that was going to do it anyway, because, I mean, talking to Solas and Trespasser, we learned that back his original plan, before he joined the Inquisition, we weren't even people to him. He didn't care about us at all. And Cole actually says that about Velasan. He says his friend had to die because he thought they were people. Mm-hmm. A slow arrow breaks in the sad wolf's jaws. Solas did not see us as people, so he didn't care if we got destroyed. Now, he does care, but he's still going to do it. Well, the way I see it happening, I'm thinking of the veil almost like a dam, where, like, you know, some of the water fade is going to seep through, but it's all being held back. So Veil suddenly comes down, all that magic is going to rush in, and all our buildings, our entire foundation of our society, I say our, but
yeah. We basically live in Thetis, let's be real.
all of that is dependent on the Veil being there to hold back most of the magic. As soon as that comes down, it's all going to rush in, and it's not like magic is trying to destroy us; it's just going to.
So it would kind of like be the opposite of what happened when the Veil went up.
Exactly, because the elves were dependent on the fade, and their structures depended on magic to stay up. Veil was drawn, magic was held back, their structures fell apart.
I would also be wondering if, so the Veil goes down, would all the elven structures then rush back into place? So, we suddenly just, maybe you had, a little home nestled in some elven ruins, and suddenly you're in a lot of elven, very big castle. Oh, shit, what happened here? But this reminds me, I actually, I'll read a bit of it because I took a section of it. I don't know if you specialize as a Rift Mage ever, but, every time you specialize as something, you have to get, a book, and in the specialization of the Rift Mage, it says this. Well versed in the forces that magic can produce, my senior was surprised by an alteration, a deviance. That which had previously been coaxed is now a flood that must be staunched. The same amount in different intensity, quick to expose fault in the way it is accessed. She drew too much, expecting resistance. There was none, and her form suffered the brunt. So basically it's saying that because these people went off to go study the breach, or a veil, or not the veil,
the rifts.
Thank you, the rifts. And she tried to draw magic from it, and these people are so used to drawing magic from the veil, and there's resistance. She drew too much and essentially burnt herself to death. So I'd imagine that's kind of what having the veil suddenly magical around you. People who are used to having magic would try to draw the magic in, not do it properly, and hurt themselves. And people who are not used to having magic would suddenly try to draw, they would accidentally do magic. Kind of like how young mages, children, would just accidentally, burn down houses. It was suddenly
right.
A world full of children not knowing what they're doing.
Right, I can definitely see that happening as well. But I feel like in any event, even if, this world dies, as Solas describes it, I feel like in any event there would be survivors, just like there were in ancient Elgar'nan. But what does Solas plan to do with those survivors?
Before we move on to survivors real quick, I had
Okay.
two other things. So
Sorry.
no, that's fine. I had two other ideas of the world has to die. So there was the one that you mentioned, that the world has to die is just a byproduct of the magical energy rushing in. Another one I was thinking it's more political in nature, that now that the elves are back in force, they're just going to have to kill everything around them because they have to take back their land. So it's more they're going to survive the veil going down, but the elves are going to take back what was once theirs. Or in a very literal sense, the world has to die because it took a mountain of dead slaves to break open a hole in the veil. How is Solas going to take down the veil entirely? Is he just going to have what if the elven artifacts that we had to turn on were somehow some sort of ritual that's going to just explode people all around the world, and that's going to be a giant blood magic ritual to take down the veil? That's really crazy, but what if? It's tinfoil number 2 of the day.
Oh, God. I don't want to think about that. That's just... Oh, my God. Well, I think it comes down to the thing. Why hasn't Solas torn it down already? If he could do it right now, why hasn't he?
I don't think he can right now. I think there's something missing. I don't know what that is, but I think that's going to be the plot of DA4. Figuring out, okay, why did he give us a warning, number one, and what's in between the warning and when he's going to do it. I think it's in his character to say, hey, by the way, I'm going to kill your world. Sorry, man. But then he would then, if he had the means to do it, then he would just do it.
Yeah.
So then,
let's see. What does he have? He has the remaining power of Flemeth, which was not full powered Mythal. It was just a wisp of Mythal.
Well, the Mythal wisp, yeah, but she had. Maybe she didn't have the full power of Mythal, but there's a fair amount there.
Yeah. And we'll talk about Flemeth herself in a second, but
Yeah.
he has her power, and he has access to the crossroads.
Mm-hmm.
Morrigan says, when she first takes you to the crossroads, that the barriers between worlds could be torn down from there. I don't know how the hell she figured that out.
Yeah, how
But-
did she figure that out? That's a really good question.
Oh, and it's also worth mentioning, if you have mage knowledge, when she takes you there, the Inquisitor describes it as if someone took the properties of the Fade and pulled it into a bubble. And that's what the crossroads is. But he or she also says it's breaking down. And eventually the crossroads would collapse in on itself.
Maybe that's why he has to take down the veil, even if he doesn't want to. That if when the crossroads come crashing down, it's gonna like just explode a bunch of crap anyway. Or maybe his plan is taking down the
And
crossroads.
the crossroads.
Okay. Well, at that point, why
Huh.
not just wait it out then? Because if they're gonna do it on its own, it's like, I'll just chill out for a while, let it do its own thing, and then just come back and casually.
That's a good point.
Maybe like, well, I'm not saying your idea is wrong. I just think that maybe there's another element of time we're missing. Maybe Solas is starting to age. Maybe his people are starting to age. Maybe he's noticing like a bunch of like Corypheus coming free, or like maybe there's some catalyst that like, okay, I need to get this going. Now you also mentioned survivors earlier, and I rudely cut you off. What were you going to say with that?
Well, I mean, just what does he plan to do with the survivors? Obviously, he wouldn't want to enslave them because he's soulless, but does he plan to just round them up and like adopt them into his new elven society, or would he just kill them?
I don't know. Like, I think it also depends on what you think, or what he thinks of you now, because if Solas is friendly to an Inquisitor and he thinks these people are people, he might be like, yeah, okay, like, sorry I killed your world, but if you want to join us, like, yeah, whatever, man. But if he doesn't think they're people, and maybe like I don't know how you survived, but you go to your people, this isn't for you.
Yeah, no, that sounds right.
Yeah. Well, we mentioned Flemeth. Do you want to go on to Flemeth and the Evanurus now?
Yep, sounds good to me.
So I had, bringing back another comment I had, this one's from Christina D from the Solas video I put out. And she said, didn't he say he had plans for the Evanurus and Trespasser? Past tense. His plan was broken. Perhaps something went wrong with the Evanurus being in prison, and now he's scrambling to put together a new plan to deal with them. I went back and I listened to it, and yeah, he says, I had plans. And, like, granted, he is talking to you, like, what he's going to do with the orb, but you would think that whatever plans he had would still work with what he's currently doing. So I think that she's still right, Christina. Like, he had plans to deal with the Evanurus, and now they're just kind of fucked for whatever reason. So what is he going to do?
Yeah, no, I totally get that, because as I was preparing for this, I thought, okay, Veil comes down, Evanurus are freed. How is he going to take on all of them?
I don't know.
Without the power of his orb, all of them together, assuming they're not completely insane,
Yeah.
that seems like a fight he would lose.
Maybe he plans to pit them again, because he's not really, like, if you look at stories of the Dread Wolf, he's usually for not fighting, he's for making them fight someone else. Maybe
Right.
he's going to put Evanurus versus Blight. Maybe that's why he doesn't want the old gods to die, because then no one's going to fight the Evanurus.
Could be. But we also... the stories of... I guess this is still just a theory, but it's heavily supported, and that the Blight was in Elgar'nan, and Andrewel going into the Void was the cause of that. It seems like at least some of the Evanurus were using the Blight as a weapon. And I think that's why Solas says if he hadn't drawn the veil, the Evanurus would have destroyed the entire world.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like they couldn't control the Blight, and so, that's what would destroy the world. Feel free to jump in here. I'm running out of things to say.
Sorry. Well, I guess my next point was going to be on, like, Meryl's Mirror. So, like, I had nothing else on that line. So I'm sorry, man. I have to let you flounder here.
No, I'm out of things to say.
Okay, that's okay. Like, other than just saying, like, yeah, man, like, I have nothing else to add to that, unfortunately. So, we're going to have to awkwardly just, like, move on.
Yeah.
I'm really good at segues. I'm trying to like think of a way to like bridge this together, but it's not coming to me. Well, okay, so
Nah.
I was thinking of Meryl's Mirror. So Cole mentions that they sleep masked in a mirror, hiding, hurting, and to wake them. ... What does that mean? Like, obviously, he's talking about at least I think he's talking about the Evanuris. So I think so in Dragon Age 2, or I guess Dragon Age Origins, when we see the Alluvian for the first time, it like looks a lot like the Alluvians in Inquisition. But when that same Alluvian is moved to Dragon Age 2, then it suddenly has this weird frame to it, which okay, and that's Meryl's Mirror. And pretty much when going on to the Inquisition, everyone just thought like, oh well, they just changed the design of the Alluvians again. Except you can see Meryl's Mirror in the crossroads in the background, and I think there's actually a couple of them. Although I don't know if that's like them copy and pasting like assets of the level, because like you can't really walk around there, so no one really notices unless you're like me and have flight cam. But
No, I've definitely seen. I think some people even pointed out you can find Meryl's Mirror in the Winter Palace, like tucked away behind some crates. And I know they've copy and pasted assets all over the place, but in the Crossroads specifically, we can see a lot of the Alluvians do look the same, except for Meryl's Mirror.
And what interests me so much about Meryl's Mirror is that Alluvians are made to be doors, but Meryl's Mirror, like, there's like shit in front of it. There's like these golden branches kind of in front of the mirror itself. Like, that would be a really crappy door.
Yeah.
So what is it? Is it maybe the branches are like keeping something in, or perhaps like it's not really an Alluvian, it's something else or something similar?
Well, let's remember that when Tamlin looked into it in the Dalish Elf origin, he says, "I see a city. There's a great blackness."
What if those are like the all of those looking mirrors are mirrors that lead into the Arlathan or something? Or I mean, I think I almost want to say that the Black Sea he's mentioning is obviously the Black City, but I'm personally on the band camp of the Black City is Arlathan.
Of course, me too.
Yeah.
The mirror in the Dalish Elf origin was, as Duncan describes it, it was giving off the taint. It was, and that's why Darkspawn were drawn to it. But I have to wonder, since that Alluvian seemed to be active before Duncan destroyed it, could they have just walked through to the Black City then and there?
I don't know. Well, it seemed like no, I'm getting my memories confused. Duncan never like lays a hand on it. I don't know. It looked like it almost like turned on when you got in there with Tamlin, and Tamlin's like poking at it, and then you can see like ripples.
Yeah.
And then it kind of turns off again. Because, like, well, yeah, okay. No, okay. Well, Duncan, like, shatters it. So if he had a sword and was shattering it and was on, the sword just would have gone through. So, yeah, it wasn't on anymore.
Perhaps it was reacting to Tamlin's, because he's Dalish, his elven blood?
Maybe. Although, well, I guess, like, because Tamlin went up to it, where Duncan was the closest to it, so it didn't react to him. I don't know. Maybe, like, the Tamlin was the first elf that Mir had come across in a very long time. So it was like, oh, a friend, hello, and turned on. But, which I, like, so, in this scenario we're painting, Tamlin goes into the Black City then. How does he come out? Because we see him again.
Well, I don't think I don't know. I know that, right as he's touching it, he says something's coming at him, and he can't look away, and then there's, like, an explosion, and it knocks you back, and that's when the Dalish Warden is infected with the taint. Mm-hmm. So maybe whatever came at him turned the mirror off, and it was on before that. We're also assuming a great deal with this.
Oh, definitely. Like, watch, like, we learn the truth, and it's, like, nothing close.
Yeah.
There just happened to be, another Alluvian, like, leading to, like, where a bunch of Darkspawn were, and they're like, hey, look at that guy, and they, like, pulled him through and was like, buddy, and, like, that's it. That's the whole mystery. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I think, okay, let's move on to Flemeth now. Right. So I think Flemeth is dead. Sorry. Like, Mythal's living on, but I think Flemeth is gone. I don't think we're going to see her again. But I think Morrigan is going to kind of take the place of what Flemeth was. Like, in Data My Notes, we find out that I don't know if this is, like, going to be true for the series, but at least their intention is that Morrigan is going to be the next Mythal. Or the next holder of Mythal. So I think that in the future, it's very likely that we're going to have a Morrigan Solas standoff.
I could see that. But Flemeth, of course, has plans of her own,
Yes.
or Mythal, because when you encounter her, you ask, why did Mythal come to you? And she says, for a reckoning that will shake the very heavens.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems like she has different plans than Solas. What is her reckoning? Revenge on the Evanuris?
I don't know. A lot of Mythal makes me think of kind of the Anders vengeance thing. Like,
Right.
because Flemeth, like, at least from you hear her story, like, I can see her being a very angry person. And if Mythal was a goddess of justice, as she's described to be, taking into something, is even Mythal not immune to someone's lust for vengeance, and therefore turned into exactly what happened to Anders. So, in a way, Mythal Flemeth is this a more powerful, like maybe more experienced version of Justice Anders. So, will Morrigan be able to calm Mythal's vengeance? Is what I'm wondering. Because Mythal, like so far, Morrigan, especially depending on your torch, is like she's pretty chill.
Yeah. No, I think I replayed Origins a little while ago, and I was noticing a lot more things, of course. And I noticed a lot of what Flemeth says is directed at men. She says, like, oh, how very like a man you say that.
Mm-hmm.
And even in Inquisition, she says, I knew the hearts of men before Mythal came to me. And actually, one of her most significant lines I can think of, she says, men's hearts hold secrets darker than any blight. And so I can't help but feel maybe Elgar'nan, as her husband, is the focus of her anger.
That would, because like so far of the Flemeth that we know, she's only had daughters. Like Morrigan only really raised around women. There's definitely been a like Morrigan used to say that Flemeth used to tell her stories of using men like toys or whatever the words were. So yeah, maybe Flemeth is just like super crazy feminist and wants to kill all the men. I kind of like that theory.
Actually, Morrigan, I wrote down some of what was said when I came across it. Morrigan says that Flemeth's bitterness seems to have colored her memories. And, of course, Morrigan also has the line, men are always willing to believe two things about a woman. That she is weak and she finds him attractive. And first of all, let me say, as a man, I can assure you, I have never thought either of those things about women.
I don't know whether to be like,
Ever.
go you, or that's kind of sad, bro.
No, I think that's all I have to say about Flemeth.
Same, really. So let's, I guess, go on to the other half. I didn't really have much on this, but the Forgotten Ones. Because, like, I was always curious, why does Solas not say anything about the Forgotten
Anything
Ones?
at all.
Anything at all. Like, they were supposed to be buddies. Words, I guess not. Never mind. Why were they locked in the void to begin with? What is the void? Where are they? Like, if they are locked away, would the veil coming down bring them back? Are they gonna, like, is Solas against them now? Or maybe he's, like, for them? Like, I don't...
Well,
And that's literally all I have on that, by the way.
no, I have a few theories I've talked about before. Solas talks about the Evanuris fighting in a war before they were considered gods. Mm-hmm. He says, it started with a war. Generals became respected elders, then kings, then gods. Who were they fighting in that war?
So I always read it as the Titans and the Dwarves, but it could totally be the Forgotten Ones, and so it's like a Civil War type of thing.
Right. I feel like it could be either of them. Or maybe even the old gods.
Maybe even all of them. Maybe it's just a really
Maybe
big
all
war.
Of them. It's possible that... I mean, there are stories of the Forgotten Ones interacting with the Evanuris, like Fen'Harel in the tree, where Enaris fought Andruil. And so I was thinking maybe the Forgotten Ones happened at different times in Elgar'nan. Like, it started with Daern'thal. He failed to rebel against the Evanuris. Then Enaris, then Ghil Dirthalen. And Solas is the only one that actually succeeded.
Oh.
That's a possibility, but The most significant codex entry I've ever found on the Evaneris is in the Frostback Basin.
The Gelderon's claim?
Gelderon's claim, he says, those people gain power not by influence, but by deed. Let Anduril's bow crack, let June's fire grow cold. Let them build temples and lure the faithful with promises. Their pride will consume them, and I, forgotten, will claim power of my own, apart from them, until I strike in mastery.
It's a good one. It's probably one of my favorite codex entries, just because it's very... I mentioned this to Jordan on our podcast one day, and like we were both talking about, like, does this take a moment and appreciate like how powerful that's written? Because it's really...
Yeah.
It really does feel like, man, this guy's pissed.
Yeah. So it's possible, it seems like his plan all along was to be forgotten.
Like you're probably going to bring up, why? Why does he want to be forgotten?
So that he can become more powerful, and then...
Mm-hmm.
Just when the Evaneris think they're safe, they've forgotten all about him. He comes at them from behind.
So did Solas disrupt that, or is this whole veil thing actually a part of that?
It depends, I think, on the Void's relation to the veil, and we don't know.
Yeah, we did. What we have Jack on the Void.
Oh my god.
Well, speaking of the Void, I think we go on to Black City. Why? The timeline as I remember it is that people saw the golden city in the Fade and it was gold. The Magisters walk, it turns black. But the Magisters say it was already black.
Right.
So, what did people see?
It could have been an illusion.
Yeah, so like maybe like when they walked in, it broke the illusion.
Perhaps. I mean, it's also that everything in the Fade is shaped by our imagination. So, what they would be looking at as golden is, just a facade. Could also be that maybe they just weren't close enough to see it, because maybe you can only ever see it from a distance, so maybe they were just assuming it was golden.
Why is it in the center of the Fade, and why can no one get to it? That's something I've always wondered.
I don't know if it's in the center per se, because it's a God,
it does say that like all points in the Fade are equidistant to the Black City.
But the Fade is also infinite.
True.
So I feel like trying to get to it just by the nature of the Fade, I don't know. It's weird.
All right, so let's go on to the last topic, which is the Blight. The Black City maybe brought the Blight. Who knows? Don't really know. So one thing that I thought of, so if you in the Here Lies the Abyss questline, you leave a warden behind, would their tainted blood actually hurt the Fates somehow?
That is a good question. What that reminds me of is in Warden's Keep. You see, Avernus, he talks about how the Blight and demons are alien to each other. Mm-hmm. It's also worth mentioning that during that last boss fight, the demons are coming out of a mirror. I'm trying to remember what exactly happened in the DLC, because it was really short for some reason. But would that hurt the Fade? Because, I mean, the Black City's in the Fade. Could the Blight not, radiate from it? Or what if... Here's a thought. Okay, this is going to get really... There's not enough words to describe what I'm imagining.
Okay.
But
I'll get
imagine...
the hat on.
Imagine the Black City is inside its own bubble. Mm-hmm. And you can see into it, which is, where the Black City is. Okay, and now put the Fade around that bubble. The Fade is infinite, ever-changing. Maybe that's why no one can get in, because it's not actually in the Fade. What if it's just like the Crossroads, where it's kind of there, but not?
Maybe.
And maybe that's also what's keeping the Blight contained within it.
Maybe. I guess my major question with the Blight is that when we talk to Solas, he doesn't seem worried about any of that. So I don't know if he's not talking about it, or if he actually if he's very sure of himself that he's going to stop it. And if it is, I believe that Solas, he knows his shit. So if he thinks he might be able to do it, I think he actually might be. And I find that very intimidating.
Yeah.
That, he's just the Blight, yeah, fuck it. It's not even a worry. I just need to get the veil down and everything will fall into place. I don't know if he's just trying to Especially with a friended Inquisitor or even a Romance Inquisitor, you would think there'd be some like, man, I'm doing this thing. It might not work out, but I've got to try it. No, he's like, yeah, I'm going to do it. And it's going to work. And we were like, oh, shit, okay. He's not worried about the Blight. So, like, I don't, like...
We should also...
I don't know.
I mean, even if the veil comes down, the Blight is still a threat, right? Because if it was in Elgar'nan, pre-veil, it was still a threat then. It should still be a threat afterwards. And it also brings up the question, would, bringing down the veil, would that awake Titans? Would that awake the old gods?
What if? Okay, so combining everything we just talked about.
Right.
The veil goes down. Titans wake up. Titans freak out. Earthquakes everywhere. Now there's whole splits. The earth just splits apart, essentially. This allows the Darkspawn to go out. Also, let's pretend that the Evanuris and the Archdemons and the Forgotten Ones are all released from whatever prison they are in. So now, literally, there's like probably twin blights. Everyone wants that because both Archdemons are free. The Evanuris and the Forgotten Ones are like, what just happened? And everyone on Earth is screaming and dying because they're on fire for magic. What if everything we've talked about, all the worst case scenarios, that's what happens. And Solas has a plan for it.
Oh, God, that's scary.
But I guess I'm almost scared of what his plan is because, like, what are you doing? Like, how much crap do you have planned? Like, does he have, like, a logbook or something that's, like, step 1, step 2? Like... How do you keep that much? Like, that's a lot of stuff going on at one time. And to just be able to be like, yeah, I'm not even worried about it. I'm just going to bring back the elves and we'll see what happens. I don't know.
Well, it's hard to admit, but we should accept that Solas does not know everything.
That's true.
Because he didn't know about the Magister's sidereal. He had no idea.
I thought he knew about him. He just didn't know that they were still alive.
He didn't know their full capabilities because he assumed Corypheus would be effectively dead.
Yes.
What else doesn't he know? But that he's now having to consider.
And I think this goes back to why his name means pride. Is that he's so prideful in his beliefs that he just assumes he knows everything, but that pride is ultimately his downfall. And I think with that, that's a pretty good place to end it.
I guess so.
I think that Dragon Age 4, my guess at Dragon Age 4, we're probably going to be answering some of these questions that we've asked today. That or BioWare just is like, hey, all this stuff we've built up, yeah, fuck it, we're going to do something else. we're going to now solve the Griffin crisis or whatever. I don't know. But I would assume that my best guess for Dragon Age 4 release is about 2019 after Anthem comes out. I bet we can get back together 2019 and then do an update on this and see what we learned.
Yep, that sounds good to me.
All right.
All right. Thank you for joining me.
Well, thank you. Cole, it was nice talking with you, and I'm sure we'll talk again sometime.
All right. I'll see you later.
All right.
Bye, everybody. Tala Nadas.